This is Wes Holland with H6 Law, and you're listening to The Ascent with Crestmont Private Wealth.
The opinions expressed are those of the host. The material is for informational purposes only. It does not constitute investment advice, and it is not intended as an endorsement for any specific investment. Visit CrestmontPW.com for more details.
Welcome to The Ascent. This is Sam McGee with Crestmont Private Wealth, and we have offices in Houston, Texas, and Boerne, Texas. Coming to you from the Boerne Radio Studio below the Richter. Here with Baron Wiley, one of my good friends and the owner of Boerne Radio, and Wes Holland, who was on the show not too long ago. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
So, Wes, one of the things that you brought up to me a few occasions is how wills are something that everyone should have, right? If you have any kind of property, once you're an adult, have a will, which is great. That's kind of table stakes. But you also mentioned, hey, business owners that have an operating business typically don't have a business succession addressed in a will. Talk more about that.
Sure. Having a business succession plan for any business, no matter how big you are, is very important. You have to think about, upon your passing, who's going to run the business to keep it going, because that's something that you took the time to build, however you built it, whatever your company is. But just as importantly is what happens if you're incapacitated. What's going to happen? Who's going to run the business day to day? And sometimes your power of attorney that you think you have, that you were given to whoever, takes care of that. It does in limited circumstances, but it really doesn't set up what's going to happen, who's going to run the company when something happens to you. And then if it's unfortunate that you're passing, where does the business go? Who gets the business? Who operates the business? That kind of thing.
Yeah. So thinking about just different industries, we work with a variety of them at Crestmont Private Wealth, meaning owners in different industries. The more technical something is, the more know-how there is with maybe a key person, the bigger the risk is of that business being able to operate should someone become incapacitated or die. And so what are some things that maybe, those business owners that are sitting out there right now listening to this and going, man, I'm making all the decisions and I'm loving this. This is great. And maybe they've got a handful of employees. What are some of the steps they can take to kind of start to insulate themselves from that problem and then maybe go into the legal side?
Yeah, absolutely. So, some of the things that you can do to insulate you from the problem is, one of them simple, just lay out in paper, this is how this is where everything is. This is how I get into it. And this is what I do on a day-to-day basis, at least. So in the short run, somebody can at least keep the plane in the air, so to speak. Maybe not land the plane, but they can keep it in the air.
Yeah.
And then it's hard because I'm a business owner. And so, a lot of times I'm just out doing my own thing and not really thinking about, I need to train the people working with me of how to do these things in case something happens to me. But that is some thought you need to give is, who's a trusted employee or trusted employees that could do certain things while I can't, or in my stead if something happens. Because the last thing you don't want to be incapacitated in your company flounder because somebody doesn't know what to do.
Yeah, that's right. I love your analogy of landing the plane and flying the plane. I'm going to give a little shout out to my aunt, little segue here. So my aunt up in Colorado, Kathy, I'll just say Kathy, love her dearly. And she was a hairdresser for about, 50 plus years. She's still cutting hair. Anyway, she was sort of a serial do-it-yourselfer and do some different things. And she did a trade out with somebody once on learning how to fly an airplane for haircuts. And this is a true story. And she literally flew over Salida, Colorado, flew over that mountain range. I forget the name of it. But, can you imagine, I'm a hairdresser, I'm flying this plane. She landed it, all right? I'm bringing this up for that imagery because if you're a business owner, and I'm putting them in the analogy of the pilot and the hairdresser being the employee, if you don't teach somebody how to fly that plane and land it, they're not going to do it. So if you're listening to this and you're running a very successful business, but you have complete and total control and you make all the decisions, you have a problem.
Agreed.
You have a problem because as soon as you go on a long sabbatical or a involuntary sabbatical called incapacity, you're going to run into a big issue. And so, I mean, Wes, some of the businesses you work with, I'm sure you work with bigger ones, medium, small. What do you see owners doing to kind of bring up that Gen 2? Do you see a lot of that, or do you see a lot of reluctance?
I see both. You know, I see reluctance because a lot of times people will think it's quicker for me to do it than teach somebody to do it. I'll just do it myself. It takes me 5 minutes. If I teach somebody, it takes me 15 minutes. I'm guilty of it myself. But I have learned over the years that, yes, on the front end, it takes a little longer to teach somebody to do it, but then I have somebody that can do it, right? And then I can go on a vacation and be okay. Hopefully not an involuntary vacation, but a voluntary one. So, yeah, I see reluctance with people wanting to do that. But the good business owners figure it out and they start doing it, and then they'll find their key employees that they trust to let in a little bit or let in all the way. And then the company actually runs better. I've found that if you have multiple people doing things, it's a better run business, plain and simple.
Yes. Well, which kind of gets back to what we talked about in our previous show a little bit. I had mentioned Alec and Hannah at Crestmont, and probably a nice little shout out to them. They became Phantom Equity partners at the end of last year. And part of the reason we did that was for business continuity. I mean, it's, you know, in the event that I go on a involuntary vacation, you know, I do like to mountain bike. I like to ski. I like to do things and get injured. And if something does happen to me, I want the firm to continue. I want to be able to take a vacation. And so that was one of the things I did as an active step as the owner and CEO of Crestmont, was identifying my key people. Alec has been with us for over 12 and a half years. Hannah's coming up on 9 years. They understand how to run the business. We gave them some authority in the agreement that we put together as technically officers.
Correct.
So the importance of that is, if I'm out and something needs to happen, they can get it done, and they have the authority to do that, which honestly was very comforting to me. I need to share that with the listeners. You know, when we went through as a smaller business, this kind of partitioning of responsibility and adding Alec and Hannah as Phantom Equity partners and officers, I had tremendous relief. At first, I kind of viewed it as, hey, this is a way to reward them and retain them. And yes, that's important. But what I found was I was more relieved than they were excited when we signed that thing. I was thrilled because it didn't take away anything from me. I'm still leading, I'm still building our business, but it just gave me tremendous comfort. And so I share that very honestly and really from a position of vulnerability, because every one of our clients is going to hear this, and everybody online is going to hear this, but it's so true. And so I just think that there's business owners out there that are so reluctant to give up control. And then if something does happen to them, they're completely out of control, right?
No, that's right. And, you know, like you were just saying, you know, it's a value add to have people that are able to help you at the office or at the business or out at the work site, and to have people that you can rely on. And, you know, let's just, you know, employees that are key to your business, when you bring them in, they have more at stake. You know, not that they don't do a good job already, but then they have something that they want to work towards, and they're part of it. It's one thing to be part of the team and just say, I'm just taking orders and I'm doing this, but to feel like you're part of the team that's, you know, doing more, you have a little more, you know, at stake, and you want to be a part of it.
So taking this back kind of to the legal side, I think this is kind of more the business consulting piece of what you do and what we do, you know, but take it back to when you see wills and you become the advisor, the attorney for a closely held business, and you get their estate documents and you see their wills. On average, just take a guess. I mean, how many, when you first meet them, have a really good business succession plan? How many don't? Like, just percentages, roughly.
I would say 10% have a business succession plan and 90% do not.
Wow. Because,
you know, you don't think about it. I mean, you think, oh, I have a will, everything's taken care of. And then, you know, and I'm honest too, and I just had this discussion of, you know, you got to be careful, especially if you have partners and stuff, like, you need to have a conversation with them about what the succession plan and what the buy-sell plan is, because you know, nobody wants to be saddled with a partner they didn't pick. And
that's
it's
right.
Just forced upon them. And then if you're just a family business, that's great, but, you know, set it up to where the people have the power to do what they need to do. and, have it in place. And a will really doesn't take care of that. And I tell people all the time, wills are great. Everybody needs a will. A will only works when you're dead. I hate to be blunt, but that's when a will works. Powers of attorney and medical directives and things like that. Those are the things that are sometimes even more important because they are what lets people do stuff while you're incapacitated, but still with us.
Just kind of thinking through this, I do think that there's people listening to this right now that are thinking, oh my gosh, I'm in that 90%. Hey, don't feel bad, okay? Just use this as a call to action to start to write down and jot down some of the things that you need to be doing. I do want to recommend a book, okay? So I recommend this book all the time. There's a book called Traction by Gino Wickman. We've referenced it at least 10 times on this show. But we went through that book, and that kind of identified the importance of leadership, creating future leaders. As a leader, in the beginning of this phase of entrepreneurship, you're driving it. You're kind of steamrolling ahead, and things are going great. And then there becomes a point where you are really kind of required to let go of the vine and start to develop other leaders. And so I think what you're saying, Wes, is most people don't take the time to go into that next phase.
Right.
And so if you're listening to this, make this a call to action to do that. Now, if you have wealth management needs, we typically work with families that have $1 million in liquidity and above, more affluent, high net worth clients in the Hill Country, Houston, Texas, and beyond. And Wes, how would someone reach you if they wanted to continue this discussion about business succession planning?
Absolutely. Our website is H6 Law, the letter H, the number 6 law.com. I'll give my email. My email is wes@h6law.com. I'm here to help. And, I just want to be honest with people. And we all think we're self-made people, and then we are. But we always had somebody that came before us that helped us get our boots off the ground. So be that for the next generation. Help them learn how to be stewards of good businesses. And if they, have their own business someday, they'll speak fondly of you, of the person that, made it happen for them.
Sage advice from Wes Holland. No better way to end the show. Hope everyone has a great weekend, and God bless.
Thank you.